All right, let's jump right in. We're kicking things off with a question that might sound a little strange at first. Is free will actually responsible for poverty? It seems like a huge leap, right? But stick with me. We're going to explore how the simple act of denying our own power to choose might be the single biggest design flaw in the very systems we've built to escape poverty.
First, let's just ground ourselves in a number that is, well, it's truly staggering. 4 billion. That's how many people right now are living on less than $12 a day. Think about that. After all our incredible progress, technology, science, finance, more than half the people on this planet are still living below what we would even call a middle-class life. So clearly, all that progress hasn't gotten to the root of the problem.
And look, this isn't just some abstract number. It's a real human experience. This quote comes from Dr. Nimrod Israeli, the author of the work we're digging into. He saw this firsthand in Calcutta. Families whose only home was under a bridge. And that's when it hit him. What good is the idea of freedom if your only real choice is where to sleep on the street? Freedom, it turns out, needs a structure to even have meaning.
So this really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. If all the things we thought would solve this, better tech, more money, more knowledge, if they aren't enough, then what are we missing? Maybe the problem isn't external at all. Maybe, just maybe, it's something internal, baked into the way we think and the systems we build. And that leads us right here to this powerful concept, the illusion of fate. Let's really unpack how this deep-seated belief that our future is already written for us might be the very thing holding us back from actually changing it.
This idea is ancient. Just think about the Greek myth of Oedipus. He gets told this absolutely horrifying prophecy, and he does everything you can possibly imagine to escape it. But the crazy thing is, every single step he takes to run away from his fate is the very step that leads him right into its arms. It's a story that has stuck around for thousands of years because it taps into this universal fear. What if my choices don't actually matter?
And please, don't think this is just some old story. This idea of fatalism has a very real, very high cost, right now. You see it in the courtroom when people say, hey, my brain made me do it. You see it in government policy when we just shrug and say that poverty in some places is just destiny. And you definitely see it in our own lives every time an ambition gets thrown away because we secretly believe the outcome is already decided. And here's the thing, when we as a society stop believing we can change things, we stop trying to design a better future.
Henry Ford just nailed it with this quote. And it's so much more than just positive thinking. This is a structural point. The belief that change is even possible is the absolute foundation for taking any action at all. If you don't believe you can build it, you're never even going to pick up a hammer.
Okay, so if belief is that critical, how do we make it work with, science? How do we find room for real, genuine choice in a universe that seems to run on these rigid, unbreakable laws of physics? Let's dive into what's called freedom's universal law.
So the biggest scientific challenge to free will has always been this idea called determinism. The physicist Laplace put it perfectly. He said, imagine an intellect that knew the exact position and momentum of every single atom in the universe. Well, that intellect could predict the future with 100% accuracy. In a universe like that, there's no room for choice. It's all just one domino knocking over the next.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Aha, what about quantum mechanics, right? It threw out all that certainty and gave us randomness and probability. But here's the catch. Random isn't the same as free. An electron doesn't choose where to pop up. It's just random. That's a lack of control, not an expression of will. It doesn't solve our problem.
So here's a completely different way to look at it. The source calls this the universal law of increasing complexity. The idea is, as things in the universe get more complex, they actually gain more freedom. Think about it. At the very bottom, you've got particles, and they are locked in by strict physical laws. But then they form molecules and cells, which have more flexibility, more ways to adapt. Then you get to consciousness, like us, and suddenly we can imagine different futures and actually choose between them. And at the top, societies can get millions of conscious minds to work towards a shared goal. So get this, freedom isn't about breaking the rules of the universe, it's an incredible property that actually emerges from them.
There's this ancient Jewish parable that just says it so beautifully. Everything is expected, yet permission is given. Everything is expected, that's determinism, the laws of physics, the path laid out. Yet permission is given, that's our freedom, our agency, our ability to choose how we walk that path. The universe might set the direction, but we get to steer.
Okay, so let's take that huge, universal idea and bring it right down to earth. Let's talk about the architecture of agency.
how the way we design our societies can either set our potential free or completely crush it.
So according to the source material, any system that's going to thrive, and it doesn't matter if it's a single cell or an entire economy, it needs these three things. It needs feedback so it can learn from what it's doing, it needs anticipation so it can prepare for what's coming next, and it needs coherence to hold itself together while it changes. You take away any one of these and the whole system just grinds to a halt.
And this table just lays it out so clearly. Take a look. Feudalism, it had tons of structure but almost no individual freedom. The result was stability but zero choice. Then you have a traditional village. Lots of freedom for the family unit, but the overall structure was so fragmented it couldn't grow. The real game changer was the LLC, the limited liability company. It brilliantly balanced high individual freedom inside a high-structure framework. And boom, that's when prosperity exploded. The pattern is crystal clear. Real, lasting prosperity only happens when you find a way to make freedom and structure grow together.
Here's another really cool comparison. You have the beautiful African philosophy of Ubuntu. I am because we are. It's this incredibly powerful moral idea about how connected we all are. But the argument here is that a moral idea, on its own, isn't enough to change the world. The kibbutz, on the other hand, takes that same idea of interdependence and builds an actual structural design around it to create real, sustainable prosperity. It's the idea put into action.
This quote from the historian Muki Tsur just gets right to the heart of it. The magic of the kibbutz wasn't about making everyone the same. Not at all. It was about creating a system where your personal fulfillment and the group's success were completely tied together. It was a design for achieving difference within unity, freedom within coherence. Which brings us all the way here to a totally different way of thinking about this problem we started with. Let's stop thinking about poverty as a lack of stuff and start thinking about it as a problem of design.
So here it is, the main takeaway from all of this. Poverty is not a lack of resources. It's not about not having enough money or food. It is a loss of structural freedom. It's being stuck in a system that's broken, a system that has no feedback loops to learn, no ability to anticipate the future, and no coherence to keep itself stable. It's a system where meaningful choice has become impossible.
And if poverty is a design problem, then the solution has to change too. This is so important. The answer isn't just charity, which often just puts a Band-Aid on the symptoms. The real lasting solution is design. It's about getting in there and rebuilding the broken systems so that they empower people, so they enable agency, and so they allow communities to build their own prosperity.
And that leaves us with one final, very powerful question. If we accept this, if we accept that our systems of freedom and prosperity aren't just things that happen to us, but things that we actually design, then we have to accept that we are responsible for them. So the real question for all of us is this: knowing what we know now, what are we going to choose to build?